My name is Christophe Rodufort. I'm a professor at Laval University in Quebec City in the Department of Management. And I've been developing an expertise in the field of crisis management, crisis communication for 30 years. And I've also been a consultant for 25 years for companies in context of crisis. You know, for everybody, this crisis has been very unprecedented in the way that we all had to stay home. And it's very unusual to stay home for such a long time. And of course, this had a big influence on the way we're going to go back to work. And we're not the same anymore. We are not the same than the one we were just before going back home 3 months ago. It means that, from my point of view, I think one of the key phenomena that really occurred during this crisis is that as the world slowed down to some extent, and as we were home, we experienced a different pace, a different rhythm of life. And what I would say is that the link between urgency and importance has changed. Most of the time, urgency, and I would say unusual time within our organization and even within our lives, urgency to some extent sets the pace of our lives. What is important is what is urgent to some extent. What we have experienced on a common basis is that what was urgent just before the lockdown all of a sudden disappeared. And nothing was urgent anymore. So it opens up to some extent a window on what is important for us. So these employees, you employees, me, myself, when we go back to work, we have a different notion of what is important or not for us, for our job, for our lives. And to some extent, it invites me to revisit my priorities of life, my professional priorities. And it's a good way, it's a good opportunity for you when you're going to go back to work to precisely revisit your priorities and communicate this to your managers in order to confront these new views you have after the crisis. It's the role of a crisis to transform things. It's the role of a crisis to give us new ideas, to refresh our ideas. And I'm sure that this lockdown has had an important influence on our priorities in life and priorities at work. So the idea, of course, is not to come with new priorities of life and to be in contradiction with the organizational priorities. But I'm really talking about a way of expressing and communicating these new priorities with your managers, because what you have to know is that maybe the managers themselves and the organization itself has thought about things differently. And the idea is also to understand that these new priorities will help you make some decisions about what you're going to do in your organization, make some decision about the time you're going to spend with your family, and so on and so forth. So it's really an opportunity to revisit together, managers and employees, what counts now in terms of the development of the organization and in terms of the development of the employees themselves. So, of course, I'm not saying that we're going to create a revolution by coming with new ideas, new objectives, new priorities. Of course, it has to be negotiated with the organization. But what is important to keep in mind that you are not the same anymore. And you need to capitalize on this crisis to precisely put forward some key values that you have rediscovered to some extent during the lockdown, in order to be able to adapt these key values to your new or to your renewed, I would say, professional environment. my role as an employee and well, your role as employees and maybe your responsibilities would be to think about the fact that everybody has been isolated so far. And one of your main role and one of your main responsibility as employee, no matter the level of your job within the organization, is to think about recreating a link with your colleagues, really recreating a social link with your colleagues, with other employees across the organization, because that's what we need now. We need to socialize. We really need to re-socialize together, because we all experienced a common big experience that is called the lockdown, that is called the pandemics. And we need to share about that and to use, I would say, this common experience as an opportunity to re-socialize in a new way, maybe, with inventing new relations, inventing new ideas, sharing these ideas together. And I think this is one of the priority of each employee when they come back to work. Again, they don't have to assume that the world is the same as it was when we started the lockdown 2 or 3 months ago.